Good evening again, everybody. Take two. I'm not sure what happened there. I've never known Craig be so quiet. I think he might have got upset to my comments about him being old and scoring at both King Power and Filbert Street after I was speaking to Jerry Taggart and Matt Elliott earlier. But I'm sure Craig's not like that. I'm sure what he said was really interesting. The only problem was I couldn't hear him. So if you've come back, thanks very much. We're going to start this again, and I'm going to introduce you to Jamie Vardy's clone, because he can score when he wants to and where he wants to. Good evening, Craig.
Good evening, Chris. Again, it's so long since I've had the pleasure.
And how soon you forget as well. You know, I can hear you this time, so that's good. That's good. So thanks everybody for coming back to us, and I apologise for the gremlins there. What I think I said was that whilst I don't want to sort of dwell on the fact, we came down to earth with a bump on Sunday. A week is a hell of a long time in politics. It's even longer, it seems, in football. What happened?
Well, I think the truncated version of what I'd said before that you missed out on, Chris, that everyone else was riveted by, was the fact that in the first three games we were sort of purring like a Rolls Royce, and against West Ham, we were Del Boys clapped out old three-wheeler. It just didn't work for whatever reason. But the other thing I said was the fact that it was like do unto others as you would have done unto you. We did to Man City what West Ham did to us. They looked at that game. They must have looked at that game, saw what we did, and replicated it. And we couldn't handle it in the same way that Man City couldn't handle it. And I think if you look at the games over the weekend, there seems to be two ways of playing. You either push up high and get caught on the break, or you sit in. And we've sort of played both ways, but we've historically struggled when teams sit in against us. We did it last season. Even though we had a great season, we still struggled against teams who sat in. We didn't have that creativity, or we didn't move the ball quick enough. And that's exactly what happened against West Ham. Whether it was complacency, I'm not sure, but there did seem to be a lack of drive and a willingness to move the ball quickly.
You could also say that, or the fact that I actually purchased BT Sport for the season, and it was bad luck. Have you said? I mean, what the BT Sport commentator said, and I've quoted this so often over the weekend. Even to I've got a friend who's a West Ham fan. We were out Leicestered. I think that
As I say, what we did to Man City, they did to us, and I thought we went with the three at the back. I thought we would, and as I said earlier when you couldn't hear me, I think that may be something that Brendan might stick with, just because of the attacking intent that our wing backs have. That he likes that little bit of sort of safety at the back with having the three. The fact that he's brought Fofana, he's got a strong back three there. I mean, for me, Johnny Evans is not all he's cracked up to be. The number of times that he just gets the ball off Casper and stands there with his foot on it just drives me crazy. We've got good players, and sometimes we just don't seem to trust them, giving them the ball in tight areas. The players who trust each other are Castagna, Tielemans and Pratt, and they will give each other the ball in tight areas because they trust each other and they know that they can handle it, and they can move off to make an angle. The rest of the team are not doing that at the moment, and as I say, Johnny Evans is the worst culprit for it. You sit there and watch, and there's two or three passes on, but by the time he's decided which one he wants to knock a 10-yard pass to, the opposition are back in shape.
Yeah, I'll just come back onto that point in a second, but just a couple of good evenings. Good evening to Dale. Thanks for coming back, Dale. That one is Leo, I believe, Leo Fernandez. Technical difficulties, definitely. I think we've got a few Nottingham Forest fans in in the system somewhere. Fornell's goal was like a Sunday morning goal on the park, poor defending. I think the players already had one eye on the international break. I mean, I think literally, I think I say we were outplayed, and I think what you were saying about Johnny Evans, and I've noticed Brendan likes us to play out from the back. So Casper, you know, I was never impressed with Casper's kicking. He always, more often than not, kicked it out off the pitch when he was, you know, kicking it out. But he's rolling the ball out. And we suddenly, you know, the first thing we've got to try and do is defend. And to be honest with you, I always look at it and think first 2 or 3 passes are just going across the pitch while we try and find out. It is a different style of play to, I think, what we're used to.
I don't understand it. It's like every manager wants to be Pep, you know, so Pep will bring something in and then all of a sudden everybody has to do exactly the same. You know, just because he's got the players to play out from the back, it doesn't mean everybody has. And you see virtually every team now trying to play out from the back. And football is a risk and reward. I can't think of that many goals that have been scored directly from a keeper rolling a pass out and you go all the way down the pitch. I'm not saying that we have to be old-fashioned and, you know, win a second ball off a centre half, but there has to be a midpoint. And one thing I've noticed, and I spoke to a couple of people over the past week, goalkeepers rarely throw the ball over arm these days. You know, it's a much more accurate way of distributing the ball further up the pitch. I don't know if I touched on this a couple of weeks ago, but I went once to a coaching session that was run by one of the England coaches on the backroom staff. And it was after France had won the World Cup for the first time in France. And they played a lot of footage of how they basically won the World Cup. And they were the first ones who sort of had that deep lying midfield player. So they would have 2 fullbacks who bombed on. They'd had 2 strong centre halves. And then when they were going forward, Deschamps would sit in front of the back 2. But virtually every time that the goalkeeper, Barthez, it was Fabien Barthez, who later went on to play for Man United, got the ball, he basically threw it to the 2 wide forwards who were standing on the halfway line, and they broke so quickly and so effectively. Thierry Henry was one of those who was being played as a wide man at the time. But that doesn't seem to happen these days. It's all slow, and you can't afford to do that. You know, Liverpool can't afford to do it, you know, let alone us.
No.
We're seeing that teams are being caught out.
Just that, and again, this was something I said earlier when we were having the gremlin problem. We had 70%. But I'll put my teeth in and try that again. We had 70% possession. We had 4 shots on target all 90 minutes. Not one of those 4 was on target. We had 70% possession. West Ham had 13, yet they managed 14 shots. And I know a lot of people say, oh, yeah, you know, possession, you're not going to win the game if you don't have the ball. Well, obviously you can do. We won the league. You know, normally, you know, if you're under Ranieri, you look at that and you'd be flipping it round the other way. But 70% possession and 4 shots on goal, that kind of says where we're going, which is across the pitch rather than up the pitch.
You know, for I'll use a golfing analogy because as well at football, I'm terrible at golf as well. But it's you know, drive for show and putt for dough. You know, that's it. You can drive the ball as long as straight as you want. If you can't putt, it doesn't matter. And that's what we tend to get lulled into now, that possession is everything. And what I'd like to see is the stat of possession in the opposition half or in the opposition last third, because that's where possession counts, not in front of your own goal.
Yeah. And again, it was a game in which Jamie Vardy had the least number of touches of any player, including the goalkeeper. And if your striker, all right, the same last week, he had least touches, still got a hat trick against Man City. A couple of penalties in there, I grant you. But if he's not getting the ball, he's not going to score. And if we're not scoring, we're not going to win.
It's weird, isn't it? Because I still think Jamie Vardy is fitting into the system that we play rather than being comfortable in the system that we play. And what I mean by that is that he's happy to not make as many runs as he used to, because he knows half the time he's not going to get the ball, because we're playing 3 or 4 passes around the back by the time he's made a run. So he sort of picks and chooses his time. As I say, if we're so slow, the gaps for him to run into have gone.
I think I heard one of the commentators again over the weekend, or one of the somebody doing an analysis of the game, that Jamie isn't making the runs like he used to, but the runs that he's making are better. But you still need him to make those runs, don't you?
One of the things I was thinking about is looking at our team, and we talk about having a plan B, and I know there's been a lot of people talking about Slimani. I know we're touching on the transfer window, but the fact that Slimani didn't go anywhere, and a lot of people would like him on the bench as a plan B, and I'd be in that camp. I really like Slimani. I think if you wanted a hard-working centre forward, for me, he always worked hard. And he demanded, the best off the players around him. And I think that's sometimes why he seemed to be a bit annoyed. But, you almost have a plan B. It doesn't necessarily have to be just booting the ball long or getting it wide and having crosses. What we have is virtually a team of players who want to come towards the ball. The only one who seems to consistently want to go the other way and make runs in behind is Vardy. So if the rest of the team are not playing that way and not looking that way, then he's going to get frustrated and not make so many runs. Barnes will occasionally make a run in behind, but usually that's from a lot deeper. But if all our players are coming towards the ball, we're going to be a possession-based team. And if we're having to have that possession in our own half, then we're not going to get anywhere near the goals and have enough goal attempts as it was shown against West Ham.
Just before we move on and leave the West Ham game behind, good evening to Tim Allen, and I just want to he replied to your comments about Johnny Evans, harsh on Evans, focusing on just one aspect of his game. Over previous seasons, he's brought the best out of Soyuncu, and prior to that, Maguire. He has many more attributes that he brings to the team. Do you want to come back on that, Craig?
Yeah, and I wouldn't argue against that. What my point was that if we're going to build out from the back, then we need him or whoever is the key person distributing the ball to just move it quicker. I'm not saying because of that he's not a good player. What I'm saying is that that's an area that for me he needs to improve on, particularly if you've got a team who are looking to get behind the ball as quickly as possible. When they've committed players forward and we've turned over the ball, however, whether it's gone away and it's Casper's got it or we've got it, you need to transition it quickly to take advantage of the space that's been left behind. If you're just going to stand there and sort of take 5-10 seconds to decide what you're going to do with it, that space has gone. So for me, that's just something that he needs to improve on.
I think as well, we all probably know now that Fofana has joined us, that it will probably be Johnny that makes way for him. And I think we might see Fofana being used more in the Premier League and Johnny being used more in Europe.
I'm not sure, to be honest. No? I'm really not sure. As I say, it wouldn't surprise me if Brendan sticks with his 3. Excuse me. Because I think he likes that. It's a young backline. Without Johnny in there, it's a young and very inexperienced backline. Yes, you've got Casper, but it wouldn't surprise me if he wants to play a 3 and allow Soyuncu and allow Soyuncu and Fofana to come out with the ball.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I can't see him dropping Evans.
So where would you'd see Fofana, Evans, and Soyuncu all playing as the 3?
Yeah, I think so, and I think that was why he was going for Tarkowski as well, because again, I think that experience. I don't think you would have spent that much money and put him on the bench, and I don't think he's never looked like a manager who has wanted to bench Johnny Evans. Johnny Evans doesn't seem to be a guy who you bring off the bench. He's talked about his experience and what he brings to the rest of the team. So for me, it has happened before, and I have looked foolish, and it may well happen again. But it wouldn't surprise me if he commits to this 3 at the back with pushing his wing backs on.
I mean, I personally am a great Johnny Evans fan. I mean, I think, as you know from our past chats, as much as I love Casper, I'm not a fan of having the goalkeeper as a captain. And for me, Johnny Evans would be the captain. So, I certainly wouldn't want to see him drop. But, I mean, looking at the weekend, I mean, what a weekend of football results. I mean, I'd watched our game, 3-0. You know, that was going to be the surprise of the weekend, probably. And I thought, maybe let's not hope we've got a repeat of last season. But just to very briefly touch on it, you know, Maguire, what were you doing? And then Liverpool. I mean, you know, whoever had a bet on those 2 results must be a millionaire by now.
Jesus, I know. Yeah. I'm hoping it's someone in the treasury, because I think we need the money. You know, it was. I work with the football fans I work with that are either Leicester fans, Man United fans, or Liverpool fans. So you can imagine that after our 3-0, I thought that's not going to be great going back into work. Little did I know that our result would be the best of the 3. So much, in fact, that our main Liverpool fan refused to talk about the game until about 5:30 in the evening. I tried bringing the subject up. It didn't go down very well at all. But it just shows you, I mean, the fact that, you know, the 80 million we got for Maguire is looking better and better every week that goes by, to be honest. How we managed to get that, I don't know. But having said that, you know, he did great earlier, things. We can't. Yeah.
No, we say, going back to what you said earlier, was that Evans making him look better than he was? It's like, you know, Drinkwater. Was he only good because he had Kanté next to him?
I think you could say, you know, a back line, whether it's a 3, whether it's a 2, you know, if you talk about the back 4, someone needs to talk and organise and talk people through a game. I don't think it's any surprise that it was Van Dijk going to Liverpool that made the rest of that back 4 a lot better, because he talked them through the games. You know, whoever was playing alongside him became a much better player when Van Dijk came. So I think it's really important that you have one player there who can talk the rest through the game. And at the moment, that is Johnny Evans. You know, a lot of people, you know, weren't fans of Morgan, but he talked people through the game. You know, he was an organizer. He was he communicated throughout, and you've got to have that.
You have indeed. Okay, moving on, and let's park that defeat in the bin and throw it away. Transfer window overall, good, bad, indifferent. I mean, you know, there's teams out there that have spent millions, and you know, it's just obscene. I think some of the amounts that are being spent. I mean, you know, over 100 million for a human being. I don't care. I mean, to me, that is. Normally it would be obscene, but the way things are at the moment just makes me think it is more. But we spent a little bit, but we got rid of some of the dead wood. Gazelle's gone out. We got him off the wage bill for a year in Turkey. We obviously got 50 million for Ben Chilwell. Diabate has gone to Turkey as well. And of course, we've got a few out on loan there. A few of the youngsters, Hurst, Johnson, and Knight. But I mean, Castagna to me looks possibly like the buy of the window. We can't really say much on Fofana and Under at the moment because they only had cameos. Well, only had a cameo at the weekend. But overall, how happy are you with the window?
Well, I think I was a little bit underwhelmed with Castagna, to be honest, when we got him out of all the options. But as I said, I've been made to look foolish in the past, and it'll happen again, and that's one of them. How that will work when he switches over when Ricardo comes back remains to be seen. Hopefully, he can still be as forward thinking as he is when he's playing on the right side. As you say, the jury's out. I'm very excited by Fofana. I think it's a great signing. As I say, I mean, Brendan had said that they'd been watching him for a while. So I think we're all expecting great things of him, and it's probably something we haven't got, that bit of pace and speed and height. I think one thing that I did touch on last week when we were doing the preview of the West Ham game was my fear was how poor we are in the air, and I think that was borne out again for some reason. We can't seem to get to grips with crosses coming into the box, and hopefully he'll add something to that. Under looked decent on for the first sort of 10-15 minutes we saw of him. He was positive, which is a great thing. I think overall, I mean, Brendan said he wanted 5 players. I think we would have all liked to see somebody coming in up front to take the weight off Jamie, and again, a little bit more creativity just behind him. Tielemans does most of his work sort of a little bit further back. So I don't know. Brendan said that he wanted somebody to add more creativity through the middle, which, you look at it with Tielemans and with Maddison, you'd have thought we'd have got that. What he needs, what those players need, is people making intelligent runs in front of him. So I think we would have all wanted someone up front alongside Jamie, or to give Jamie a rest.
That, as I've said before, I think we've got Mendy has come in and has been unbelievable, and Amati, and that's like having 2 new signings, just the pair of them. But I must admit, yesterday. And I did my normal bit for the BBC website. They're asking me to write up a bit, and I sat there watching it unfold during the day. And I don't think I've ever been so bored watching a transfer deadline day. I mean, I was praying for a purple dildo. I don't know if you remember that at all. The old purple dildo in the. I was, and I think it didn't work because we can still go out and buy players from the lower leagues. If there's somebody we fancy, striker at Brentford or somewhere, we can still go and buy them.
Yeah, I think there's still a few bargains, or not necessarily bargains, but there's a few players. I'm surprised Ben Rama from Brentford hasn't been picked up yet by anybody, and I'll be very surprised if he's not snapped up. I think there's 2 weeks for the Championship or the Football League for you to still sign players from there, and I'm sure there's 2 or 3 more little gems down there. It's whether you're in a position, or we're in a position to invest in more squad players, because I don't think there's necessarily anybody who's going to walk into the team. So I think Brendan's at a point. He said in the past that he quite likes having a tight group, so sending those players out on loan makes sense. Some of those I'm not sure why they're still at the club, to be honest, because they seem to go out on loan every year. So I'm not sure what the long-term planning is with those players, but he does like to have that tight-knit group, so everybody feels like they've got a chance of being in the first team. So I think from his point, he'll be fairly happy. As I say, there's a couple of players that we thought may go. We thought Damari Gray may go, but but then Leeds had a couple of other options who were clearly much more to their liking. So it'd be interesting to see if, because Gray's gone down the pecking order now,
I think maybe when you're saying like this, there is a lot going out on loan. Gazelle's always out on loan. Slimani's always been out on loan. And Diabate, maybe it's because nobody wants to buy them. And the problem is,
I mean, some of the younger ones like Josh Knight, Darnell Johnson. Again, these are players who have been at the club for quite a while. We've been not shy in stating that we want another centre half. These guys are older than Fofana that we've just brought in. So to me, that says they don't have a future, a first team future. So I don't understand the process there. As you say, it may be that nobody can afford them, so it just gets them off the wage bill for a while they're continuing to learn their craft, as it were. But I think it's pretty clear that they don't have a long-term future with us.
I must admit, I was thinking more like Gazelle, Slimani, and Diabate on that.
Yeah.
Maybe, and I've always said this, not having a reserve team in a reserve league, so many of these players aren't getting the experience. Yeah, they play in the 23s or under 21s, whatever it is these days, but they don't get that. So, yeah, and you say it does get them off the wage bill. And talking of wages, I'm just going to come on to this because I put a poll up on Twitter earlier about Slimani, and I know I quite like him. Obviously, Rodgers doesn't, and but I've said we've still got him possibly now till January. Although if he does go back to Portugal, then they've still got a couple of weeks on their transfer window. So we've got him. If they don't go at least till January, and we're paying his wages, so should we use him? And his wages are £100,000 a week, apparently. Well, 84.5% said yes, we should use him as a plan B. But what does it say when I read reports today that we offered him back to Porto free of charge? So we're immediately writing 30 million quid off there. He's actually said himself that he would halve his wages from £100,000 down to £50,000. What a hard life it is. And yet they still didn't want him by the look of it.
Yeah, I'm surprised because a lot of talk was that he was wanted back, and the chairman there wanted him back. Now, we know that Portugal and Italy and Spain particularly get very political over whoever is the current incumbent chairman at the time. They seem to take whoever they're going to buy as part of their almost like candidacy. They talk big and they're going to bring X, Y, and Z in. Now, whether that had something to do with it, I don't know. What I would like is for one of these journalists to come out straight and ask Brendan what it is that he doesn't like about Slimani. So the fans can have a straight answer to it, because as I say, that's quite a large percentage of people. That's higher than I thought, to be honest, because when Slimani was on the bench, a lot of people didn't want him anywhere near the team, but I like him, and at both ends of the pitch, he'd be helpful in winning aerial balls, that's for sure.
I mean, this is it exactly. I wasn't sure about him, but he did the business in Europe. He probably did better in Europe for us than he did in the Premier League. We're in Europe again, and we'll come on to Europe in a minute briefly. Like you say, that would be a very good question. What doesn't Brendan like about him? And I know maybe our style of play doesn't suit him, and that was one of the reasons they were possibly saying why the current manager at Porto didn't want him back, because again he's playing more of a passing style as well. But last 10 minutes you need a win. We haven't got Inacho doesn't really do a lot in the air. Vardy occasionally does, but both of them are ball on the floor players. I do find it frustrating, and we're paying his wages. Why not stick him on the bench?
I tell you what, it'd be interesting to ask our centre halves who they least enjoyed playing against this season so far, and I bet they will all say Antonio at West Ham, because he did not give them a moment's peace. That was a physical battle, and this it's rare. I mean, we don't, the old days of knocking centre halves around a bit, shaking them out of them being able to just stroll around with the ball. We don't do that anymore. Slimani was a good old-fashioned player who would relish the physical nature of the battle with the centre halves. And if centre halves are worrying about somebody clattering into them, they're not looking over their shoulder, seeing who's making intelligent runs around them. So for me, and again, maybe it was a good point, bringing him into the European squad would be useful. I know that Brendan has to announce, I think, a finalised league squad and a finalised European squad. I'd be delighted if Slimani was in at least one of those.
He's still got a number, so it's not out of the realms of possibility. I thought you were actually going to ask when you said about who the central defenders hated playing against, because that was one of the questions that came up with Matt Elliott and Jerry Taggart earlier, and I can tell you the answer there. Was Bergkamp, Dennis Bergkamp. They both hated playing against him. I think that was Matt being embarrassed by the overhead flick by him in the 3-3 at Arsenal, though. I've got to ask you this, because Brad, who does the post-match show with me on obviously post-match, knows that you are a big fan of Perez. He literally was ready to string Perez up after the game. There's been a lot of Perez is the new Chilwell. There's been a lot of negativity about. I used to like Perez, and I know we've used the old sort of don't play him in his best position, etc., etc. He wanted to know if you can defend him after the last weekend's game. But just staying on the transfers things, with Under coming in, are we seeing the end of Perez as a starter?
There's two questions there, Chris. And firstly, can I defend him? It was more difficult, I must admit. I wasn't impressed with his performance against West Ham. I can share a little bit of his frustration in the fact that, if the ball's not coming quickly enough, he looks to get a little bit disinterested. And you can't afford that, in a Premier League game. You can't afford. You have to be switched on, and if it doesn't come your way, then you've got to be able to deal with it. But he did look a little bit disinterested during the West Ham game, so difficult for me to defend him on that one. So if you're watching, Brad, fair enough. Are we seeing the end of him? Maybe the end of him as a starter. I think you're probably right. What I would say is that we talked last week about seeing him in more of a central role. If Jamie was having a rest, see if he could get a central role, and we've still not seen him there because he brought Iheanacho on to play down the middle. So I'd like to see him there, and again, it may be that in the European games he'll come into his own a little bit more. So I don't think it's all over for him, but I think the signing Under has definitely put some pressure on him.
Yeah, I don't think it's over for him, like you say, but I just maybe I'm not sure whether he's a game changer if you bring him on. But maybe it's me, but explain to me why a manager of a team buys a player not to play him in the position that from the club that you bought him from. It's like I always go back to when Barcelona bought Gary Lineker. Johan Cruyff came in, and Gary Lineker puts it that he hated that time because Johan Cruyff played him on the wing, and we know and he's fast. Gary Lineker's not a winger. Why do managers do that?
I have no idea. My example of that is a bit closer to home, was Peter Taylor, who.
Oh God.
Well, you may want to call him God.
I didn't call him God. But Peter Taylor never played anybody in the right position. So, I'm surprised he didn't stick Steve Walsh in goal.
Well, the example there of buying Adi Akinbaye, a player who scored virtually every goal he scored 12 yards inwards, and then decided to try and change him into a back to goal, ball into feet striker, which was never going to work. Got rid of Steve Guppy, who would have supplied the ammunition for him. God only knows what the hell he was thinking there. But you're right. I don't know. I don't know why managers do that. As I say, I think we touched on it last week about Klopp buying players who fit a system. He doesn't buy necessarily names. I'll go and buy the best striker who's available. He buys players who fit into his system and the way that he wants to work. I'm not sure Brendan thinks that far ahead. I think, all right, let me qualify that. I think Brendan thinks that way up to the last third, because for me it's all about possession. I'm not sure that he is switched on enough or a clever enough manager to get the best out of strikers. I think he's very good at learning possession and creating pretty shapes and how you can do all that. But for me, he's been here long enough now to know what his best front three should be. And I don't think we've ever had that. I don't think we've ever had consistency of a front three.
I mean, I do get the fact that, you look at some of these players like Diabate, like Slimani, they weren't his choice. And in fairness, would he have bought them had he been manager? Probably not. But, Perez was his, and yet he's, like you say, he's paying him out of position. But hey, at the end of the day, we hopefully he knows a lot more about it than we do. But let's just quickly move on. Yeah, let's hope so. I think we've said before that this is sort of almost the make or break season, is it not, for Brendan?
I think so. I think so. I think he's building his team now. Okay, we've all had a short pre-season, but that's the same for everyone. I don't think there are any excuses for not being more consistent and developing a proper style of play that we can see week in, week out. It's early days. We started really well, although we still look defensively unsure. The fact that we let 2 goals in against Burnley shows that that's not even right yet. So I don't know. It is a big season for Brendan. It's his players. It's his team. I think we've got to see some consistency and a pattern of play that is consistent.
Yeah. Literally, like I say, moving on to Europe, because we haven't got a game this weekend. It's obviously the international break, which I goes over my head these days. I can't. My son's coming round on Thursday when the Wales game is on. I think we're just using that as an excuse for a drink and a pizza. But I don't get excited about England until we actually get to the tournaments. But obviously, starting in a couple of weeks. In fact, the first game is on the 22nd of October, which is only a couple of weeks away now. We have got the Europa League, and you've got to be happy. I mean, I was overjoyed with that draw. You've got to be happy with it as well, Craig.
I think so. Excuse me. I think just quickly touching on the internationals, I think the most exciting international is going to be when England play Belgium, because we've got more players playing for Belgium than we have for England. So I'll be watching that one with a little bit of interest, I think. Europa League, I think it could have gone a lot worse. It could have gone a little bit better, but then that's probably being greedy. I think the thing is, you never know how things are going to turn out. The fact that there are less fans could make it easier for us on away trips. I know Athens is a bit of a hostile place to go and play your football when it's full of their fans, but it won't be. Ukraine is the one that's a bit of the unknown. I know it's a fairly small team. I think their stadium only holds 12,000, so not a huge team with a lot of European pedigree. And Braga didn't start the season well. I think they had a decent result over the weekend. Most Portuguese teams can play a bit of football, but you would think that we should have enough to get out of that group and into the next one. You'd be very disappointed if not, the way that the draw went.
I think the Ukrainian team don't even actually play at home anyway, because they're right next to the border with Russia, and I think the way UEFA the way UEFA sort of kept Russia and Ukraine teams apart. I think it sort of says it all. The interesting thing is, of course, and I'm not sure off the top of my head whether Portugal, Greece, or Ukraine are allowing fans back into the ground, because obviously with this COVID, whilst we're not allowing fans into the ground, if you're going to a country that is allowing fans into the ground, are they allowed to have fans when we can't? There's a lot to be said. That I'm not sure about. But I mean, I know when it first came out, I think we were actually drawn in the Napoli group, because I thought, oh, phew, there we go. But I think we got moved because of the way that they do these things. They moved us quite quickly. We are actually the highest ranked team in our group, although Braga, obviously, I think they qualify for the Europa League most seasons. So they've actually got, if I remember, they're usually top 4 in Portugal. So they've got the better European history, which is probably why they were in pot A. But I can say I don't think it could have got. I was hoping for Celtic. Obviously we are Celtic's B team according to Chris Sutton, obviously. But I can say with the top ranked, I think if the proper Leicester turn up, I think we should. I think I can't see us losing at home. He says. In fact, Matt Elliott actually said we'll probably get 3 home wins and 3 away draws, and that would see us through. But I'm confident. I'm looking forward.
Me too. I think the one thing I haven't seen is whether every game is being televised yet. I've not seen anything with
It's on BT Sport, and they've said they're televising every game, because that's why some of the games are on different days, so that and you've got different kickoff times. Where are we? All our home games are 8 o'clock on the Thursday. But we start off with a home game against the Ukrainians, so we start with what technically should be the easiest game. Always good to start with a win.
Oh, definitely, and I like very much the way, Chris, that you're just calling them the Ukrainians rather than trying to pronounce the actual team name.
All right, then go on. Then you do it. You pronounce it.
I haven't got it in front of me, so I'm not even going to try guessing.
Zora Luhansk.
As I said, the Ukrainians. Yeah,
the Ukrainians. We'll agree on that.
Yeah, no, we should, we should start with a win, and that should just build confidence. As I say, during those, I think I touched on it last week. During those early games, we've got some big Premier League games. I think we have Leeds, Liverpool, and Wolves during that period. So Brendan's got to juggle it. It'll be interesting to see how he goes in that first game. Whether he thinks that's a fixture that he can rest a few players and just have them on the bench in case he needs that result. But I think it's really important to get that win. But I think it may be a bit of a mixed team in that one. So getting off to a strong start. If we can get a couple of early wins on the board, then I think that should see us in good stead to get through.
Yeah, because our second game is away to Athens the week. I mean, we literally are playing, the first three games every Thursday, 22nd, 29th of October and the 5th of November, home to Braga. But like you said, I mean, when you look at the squad that we have, it isn't the worst squad. When you look at the back, we've got Ricardo to come back. We've got Fofana now. We've got James. We've got Luke Thomas. There's the lot there that he can juggle, and none of those players have let us down when they've played.
No, what I would say is I think we are a team who thrives on confidence. And I know sometimes when you have a defeat, they say it's great to get back out and have another game quickly. I think this may be a good for us to have that little bit of a break with the international thing. Those who are not away on international duty will get a little bit more training under the belt, a little bit more fitness for the shortened pre-season. But I think we are a confidence team. We tend to go on runs. We did it last season where I think we had 9 wins in a row. but we're just as capable of going on 3 or 4 losses in a row as well. So I think it's really important for us to start well in Europe, get an early win, and try and take that into the league form as well.
Yeah. Well, we covered a lot of topics there. A weekend off this weekend, so and then back where we might have some signings to talk about next Tuesday. But next Tuesday, looking forward to the Villa game. Just a little matter of playing the team that put 7 past Liverpool. Villa should be easy.
Yeah, if only. I know our games against Villa have become unpredictable even before this season. The last home game or the last game before the lockdown, weren't we? In the whole of the Premier League, the 4-0 against Villa. And again, what a shame that we couldn't have followed that up with another game and taken that confidence forward. We may well have had a different outcome to the season.
And I don't think, though, unfortunately, that we're going to get a 4-0 against Villa this season. Not on that performance. They're going to be coming in with confidence.
Maybe not. But I've got a feeling this season, without fans being there, what you're seeing is, I think a lot of these games are becoming glorified training sessions for players, because you make a mistake. You make a mistake and it may lead to a goal, or your teammates are a little bit disappointed. It's very different when there's 30,000 people disappointed with you, or trying to G you up and get into them and mess them up, I think is the phrase that the fans use. And I think that's having a real effect. So I think there's going to be a lot more unpredictable results until fans get back in the grounds. And it could be anybody's this season. I'm not necessarily saying that there's going to be a surprise winner, but I think that top 4, top 6 is open to a lot more teams this season, because I think teams are going to start beating each other. So I think it's going to be an exciting season. It's just disappointing that as it stands, we can't be part of it.
No. And Man United in the bottom 5, which is always always nice to see. Anyway, Craig, thanks very much for joining as usual. And take care, stay safe, and I shall, if I don't speak to you before, I shall speak to you next Tuesday night, back to 7:30. I'll let you have the 7:30 slot back again.
Thanks, I appreciate that, Chris.
Cheers. Thanks a lot, Craig.
Yes, thanks, guys.
Okay, thanks to everybody for watching in. We and listening in. We covered a lot there. If you haven't seen all the show, you've only caught bits of it, go to the YouTube channel, Leicester Till I Die TV. This will be on there in about 10 minutes. Go below and you'll see all our links to our website, leicestertillidie.com, Facebook group, Leicester Till I Die, Twitter @LeicesterTID. And please subscribe to the YouTube channel. We need those subscriptions, guys. Let's see if we can get up to 100. We've only been going a few weeks. Let's see if we can get up to 100 subscribes. On Friday, there's no opposition view because we've got no game on the Saturday, but I will be joined by, you may have seen some of his pictures up in the Leicester Till I Die group, a gentleman called Daniel Harrison. But what we do on a Friday, 7:30 as the normal time for the opposition view show, we're going to be having what we call the retro show. And basically, when we can't get anybody from the opposing team or we haven't got a game, we'll be having a retro show when we'll be looking back at our memories of Leicester City. And this Friday, we'll be looking back at what people's first game was, the first game that they went to see Leicester, whether it's home or away. So if you want to come on and have a chat with us or just comment, join us on Friday at 7:30 and let us know what your first game was that you saw the blue of Leicester. As always, stay safe. If I don't see you then, I'll see Craig next Tuesday back with the Tuesday night show. Otherwise, join me on Friday for the retro show, 7:30. Guys, take care of yourself, and whatever you do, make sure you stay safe. Good night.